All right, everybody, this is Lane Livingston, and welcome to Expat Kingdom today. And I'm really excited because today I'm going to be speaking to Pyle, who currently lives in Orlando, but she's actually planning to move to Cuenca, Ecuador, in the next few months. And so today, what we're actually going to be talking about is how she's been able to set up a virtual income situation. So this is what's giving her the flexibility to move abroad, if I'm not mistaken. Does that sound correct, Caitlin?
Yeah. I wouldn't be able to do it unless I was working online. So,
Cool. Well, let me ask you something. How did you make that transition, or just kind of what's your background? Because I actually, what's really interesting, I'll just kind of say now, I went to your site, obviously read through it, and I thought it was amazing just how transparent you are about your background and your experience and kind of how you made that transition. So I was hoping you might be willing to go ahead and just talk about how you made the transition from being employed and then now self-employed, and what it is you do, in fact, too.
so, I'm a professional proofreader and I proofread transcripts for court reporters, which is a little bit different than regular proofreading. But I worked in a court reporting firm and I actually got fired from that job. And it was not a pretty situation. I write all about it on my story section on my website, but it's a long story. It's a good story. It's an ugly story, but it's a long story. So it was actually a very fortunate accident. So I went to personal training school actually after I got fired from that job, and I paid $6,000 to go to personal training school. And I had a couple of proofreading clients at that point already that I picked up from working at that office, and I was thinking, I was going to do that forever, just have a couple of clients on the side, and it was just a way to make a little extra money. And so I went to personal training school thinking that was going to be my dream. I even looked into renting some space to have, a local place to train people, and I ended up after I graduated from school, $6,000 later. I decided I didn't like it. I like teaching exercise, but I hated having to look for more and more clients. I
Hmm.
hated having to be someplace at a certain time. I hated all the things that you had to do before you actually got paid to have the client, because you get paid when you're with the client, but you don't get paid to, come up with the training program, driving to the gym. And then the gym I worked for took 50% of everything I made.
Yeah.
And you're really limited by how many hours you can work when you work locally like that, when you have, someplace where you have to be. So yeah, those two reporters, one of them suggested one day that I contract with their agency to um, do like a quality control thing with their firm because they were being forced to use one of their proofreaders and they wanted to use me. And she's like, well, maybe you should just apply to be one too. And so I did, and ever since then, it just kind of snowballed from that. I did the contract job and I did make a little bit of money from there, but they referred a lot of people to me, and it just, yeah, like I said, snowballed, and I ended up making more money at home proofreading transcripts than I ever could have hoped to make doing. I'm just gonna hold my cat.
Yeah.
Than I
No,
ever could have hoped to make doing personal training, and I can do it on my own time, and so I've just kind of stuck with it since then, and now I'm teaching people how to do it, and it's fun. I love it.
so, so did that just, you said that it basically snowballed. So was it a pretty smooth, pretty easy process to get where you're at today, or was there a lot of actual like calculated, strategy type moves in order for you to get to the point where you are today?
It was I call it I accidentally became a proofreader because I didn't intend. I had no idea that I could even do what I do. I always thought, I could never read more than 100 pages a day because, at that time I was reading on paper and now I read on an iPad, and I just really have streamlined my process enough to where I can read 700 pages a day if I want to, and that's hundreds of dollars of income just by reading at home, and so. Um, it was definitely a natural process. It wasn't something that I thought, okay, I'm going to do this first and then I'm going to do that. It wasn't like that at all. It just, I would get a client and then they would refer me to their friend, and your work kind of markets itself if you do really good work in
Sure.
this business.
Yeah.
So, and that's what made it cool is I don't have to go out and look for clients. I don't have to beg them to hire me. They just come, I get work and I do it and I get paid for every minute that I work. And so,
That's awesome.
um, it just kind of built on itself. And it's great because, I mean, people I've met that do regular proofreading, they're always like on Craigslist or on Odesk and Fiverr, advertising all the time, and they'll do anything for $5. It's weird. And with proofreading transcripts, you don't have to do that.
Right.
You don't have to do that.
Well,
So
it's interesting you say that because my background, I actually started as a graphic designer several years ago and have a creative direction background and all that. And just within the last, I don't know, 4 to 6 months or so, discovered Fiverr. And when I saw, $5 designs, it shocked me. And I mean, for logos for $5, and I just can't imagine working for that. And I think probably there's a volume aspect, or for somebody that's just getting started with their career or whatever. That's probably where that fits in. But I think it's great that you've been able to do this successfully, and you're not having to resort to those kind
right.
of places.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, when I worked, I was a manager. I was a marketing manager at the court reporting firm that I worked at, and I made $16 an hour. And I look back and I'm like, I can make in an hour what I made in a day at that place now. And I mean, the ironic thing is the person. You have to read my story. If you just go to the website and read it, it's worth it. It's very entertaining. But the lady who fired me, the owner of the company, and I had every right to be fired. That's part of the story, but she actually gave me my first transcript to proofread. And so by her firing me, she was trying to smush me down and make it to where I would never, be successful. But she actually helped me be who I am today. And so I've been thinking for a long time to write her a thank you note, actually.
I was going to ask, does she know what you're doing now?
I don't know, but I keep kind of wondering whether I should maybe try to reconnect with her and, not in a mean way, but just be like, hey, I know that you probably hate me, but I just want to say thank you so much
Right.
for everything you did to me. You gave me my first transcripts, and now I've got 2 businesses out of it. And
I think
one day I will. One day I will. It's been 3 years since I've even seen her, but
Yeah, I think you should. I think that'd be great to reconnect and just show her how much you've changed as a person, and also show gratitude and appreciation
yeah.
for that.
I mean, she wasn't very nice to me, but I also she wasn't very nice to me, but I do want to let her know that she it's kind of like a double thing. It's like I want her to know that she didn't destroy me, but I also wanted to know that I'm really grateful for her and that I don't harbor resentment.
Yeah,
So
no, I think that's fantastic. So let me ask you. So I mean, with you guys planning to move to Ecuador, did that come from? Is that something that you were already considering prior to going self-employed, or is that something that's just kind of evolved now that you've got that kind of freedom and flexibility in your schedule?
so so you're wondering whether I wanted to move abroad first or if I wanted to be self-employed first?
Yeah,
Okay. Well, it's hard to know exactly because I remember, back in high school, I always said I wanted to be my own boss, but I also wanted to go live in Germany, and I actually did. In college, I lived in Germany for a year, and there's part of me that's always wanted to do it again. Um, and man, when I was working in high school and in college, I had jobs. I always secretly despised my managers. I hated micromanagement. I hated playing games. I hated trying to people please. I hated all of that, and so I've always wanted to be my own boss. I always do my own thing, and I really just hated the fact that the best hours of my day were spent doing something I didn't want to do, and so I think it was kind of both. Just because I speak German, so that's why I went to Germany, and now I kind of just want to do it again. And I kind of thought that because I got married about almost 4 years ago, it'd be 4 years in March, and my husband was really hooked into the corporate world at the time, and I thought I would probably have to put it on hold for a while to go do those things. Even though I was completely mobile, he wasn't, and so I was thinking, oh man, well I'm kind of stuck. Even though
hmm
I could technically go anywhere I wanted to. I mean, I didn't want to travel without him. He's my best friend, so
right.
yeah, it just kind of happened to that. One day he just decided that he didn't want to be in the corporate world anymore. So um, it actually he he kind of he decided it, but it still took us a while to realize. Well, now you're going to be quitting your job to do this thing. You don't have to be here to do it. And we looked at each other one day. We were in the car just driving home from someplace, and I was like, we could go do this thing. And so now we're doing
Oh,
it.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So your husband is still in the corporate world, and he's making the transition over into more of a virtual self-employed type situation.
He is. He is. He's plugged into an online learning program right now called the Foundation, and he's learning how to create an online business himself, which is going to take a while to get that set up and everything. But he is preparing to transition out of his job very soon, and so and we could survive on the income that I make, which is really good. I'm happy about that.
Hmm.
But and that's again one of the reasons we picked Cuenca is just because it's a um, lower cost of living. So, and we can talk about it later. But yeah, he's going to be quitting soon, and just because he doesn't, I mean, he's going to be home. I'm going to be home, and I'm making money. He can start a business anywhere in the world,
That's
as
true.
long as he's got the internet.
Yeah,
And
that's fantastic. Now, something else too. I wanted to mention. I noticed in your blog you were saying as far as actually, I thought it was really cool that you broke down your income. There was a section where you actually broke down your monthly income and you
mhm.
show what you're making, which I think is fantastic because it gives people a realistic perspective. A lot of times, when you think about these online businesses or people that are trying to inspire people to get out and do their own thing, I mean, you hear these just absorbent numbers of seven figures and that that kind of stuff, and it's almost too far out there that it almost makes it unrealistic for the person, and you kind of tune your ears out. And so I think that's great that you're showing such a realistic expectation on what people could expect, and I love that. And also I wanted to mention I noticed that you said that income that you've got is basically working part-time hours. Is that what I had seen?
Yeah, there's days where I might work a 12-hour day, but then the next day, and I do that because the next day maybe I don't want to work at all, and so I'll buck up and just finish my stuff so I can go to the mall the next day or whatever I want to do. So I don't actually, I like what I do, and so I don't really count my hours, but I know
Hmm.
it's nowhere near what I used to work at a 40-hour a week job. So my perfect amount of time per day is like 3 or 4 hours of work,
Yeah,
doing the transcripts and stuff, and
I
and
love
I love it. I
I
love
love
it.
hearing
So
you say that because I currently work in the corporate world, and as I'm launching this project and everything, that's the one thing I actually talk to a lot of my friends about too, is that I don't mind working. I enjoy working. But I think that there should be a little bit more flexibility and freedom as far as how you're feeling and when you want to work, when you're going to be most creative. And really, at the end of the day, if I were to take out all the interruptions and distractions that I have working in a corporate office, I would probably actually be spending somewhere around 3 to 4 hours of focused time working. And that's really, I think, the optimal amount of time for people, in today's society when we're such we're producing our work off of our minds, more than manual labor.
mhm.
And so your mind can only do so much before it just starts losing its juice and its creativity.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I love hearing you say that. 3 to 4 hours is kind of like your optimal. But there's obviously times where you may say, you know what, let me just take a 8 hour chunk or a 10 hour chunk and let me just bust through this today, and then tomorrow I can just relax and enjoy my day.
Yeah, let me tell you, it feels so good to wake up, even though if I worked 8, 10 hours sometimes, like, and I really don't do that very often, but when I do, waking up the next day having a clear desk is amazing. I love it. Love it. So that's why I do what I do. Sometimes I'll stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning just to finish my work, and that way I can just wake up, do a workout, go shopping, whatever I need to do that day, or watch TV. It's just have so much more flexibility, and I longed for that when I worked in the corporate world. I longed for that, like only an hour, during the day to have lunch, really. I mean, that's
Yeah,
your
that's
freedom, and your
yeah.
prime hours of your day are spent at a desk. And that's actually, I can just go ahead and tell you briefly, I got fired for misuse of company time. I was like so fast doing my work, and I would finish my work and then do what I wanted. And in some jobs that's okay, but this place it wasn't. My output was really high, but if you finish your work at that place, you're supposed to go ask for somebody else's work to do. And that just produced a lot of slackers. And I knew that. And so I
Yeah.
was not in support of that model at all. And so that's the way I kind of just, got even in a way for, being taken advantage of and all that crap. But, um, yeah, so I just want to work and do things as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible, and then be able to spend the rest of my time doing what I want with it.
Yeah,
And that doesn't work in the corporate world.
yeah, and I think what's interesting too, like you were talking about being able to just go to the mall or be able to watch TV or something like that. I had a 4 year stretch where I was self-employed, and during that time, some of the simple things that I just loved to do was in the middle of the day, I would just say, you know what, I'd grab my wife. She basically stayed home, so I was self-employed, and this was before we had kids or anything. And I would say, you know what, let's just go catch a movie. Let's go to the theater. It was middle of the day, but because I had done all the work that I needed to at that point, or I knew that it was something that I could just go ahead and take care of tomorrow, and let me just take this time and appreciate it and enjoy it with my wife. And it's just simple things like that. I think when you are in this situation, that allows you to enjoy life a little bit more. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, and we're looking forward to that. Just going to like when we are going to be living in Cuenca, Ecuador. We're really excited about just being able to do our work, maybe change our schedule around and work more in the afternoons or at night when it's dark and you don't really necessarily want to be out,
Right.
depending on the area you're in or whatever. And just going for a hike in the mornings or going to farmers market or something like that, and just kind of enjoying the day, and then
Absolutely.
doing the work stuff. When when it's dark out or
Yeah,
whatever.
and,
So
and maybe even when you just feel inspired to do it and to just
yeah,
knock it out, and you know that you'll be able to produce your best work at that point too.
yeah.
I think that's great. So what then has really inspired you guys to make that commitment and that choice to go ahead and move abroad, at this point in time?
Um, I guess because we can. Life is short. You don't really have it's not a dress rehearsal, and that's something that I really had to kind of wrap my mind around. Is that this whole it's totally messed up. Society has you thinking that you're supposed to park yourself in one spot, work 40 years, and then you retire, and then go enjoy your life, and
Yeah,
we're just ingrained to prepare, prepare, and we're not really ingrained to live, like use every moment. And it's just we're trying to buck that trend. We're trying to we don't want to wait for retirement to enjoy our lives, and we kind of realize that we have the opportunity and the means. We're really lucky that we have a way to make money anywhere, and so why not? Why not just go do it and not regret it later? Or we're not even guaranteed tomorrow. We're not guaranteed the next 10 minutes. And so I don't want to spend 40 years of my life preparing for the last 10 or last 15 years of my life, because I don't even know if I'm going to get that far. And
yeah.
so it's silly. It's so dumb to wait. And so it's just really kind of crazy that we're taught to do it that way. And this is the best years of my life. And so I
I
just want
think
to enjoy it.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I know when I look back at like just kind of the last 12, 13 years or so since my wife and I've been together, that's probably when we've been the happiest, when we were able to basically keep our expenses as low as possible, and we had as much flexibility. So when I was self-employed, and that's when we were able to just kind of say, all right, you know what, let's go, let's do this. And I think that a lot of times we struggle with, okay, where are we being responsible, where are we being irresponsible? And that's something that I've actually had to notice or recognize a lot in myself lately, is that I've always been, or for the last couple of years, I've been thinking the future, the future, the future. And I've had to kind of stop myself and say, no, you know what, I need to appreciate the now a lot more, and just enjoy this, and love it for what it is, and just let go a little bit, because like you said, it's not a dress rehearsal. And so I think that's a great attitude, and I know you guys are going to end up loving Cuenca, even if there's things about it that you hate. It's going to be because of the experience and the fact that you guys let go and that you're just going for it. I think that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, we pretty much said, and we've been, facing certain individuals don't understand, but we just basically said, there's no way we're going to come back from this not better people. We're gonna be better people when we're done with this experience, whether we hate it, whether we love it. And so, I mean, life is happening right now, and so you're always thinking about later, like we were saying. We're just trained to think that way, and we
Yeah.
really just need to appreciate the now and realize as well that time is, in many cases, and most all, I would say, more valuable than money. And so, it's really not about the almighty dollar. I mean, the American dream should be about time, not money.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. That's another shift that I've had recently too, is that I think time is our most valuable asset. And so money, it can do so many things for us, but really at the end of the day, I mean, we have a limited amount of time. and we don't know what that time is. We don't know, what that's going to be. But for that reason too, we should take advantage of it. If we actually knew, in life that we're going to have X amount of years and X amount of this and that, we would probably take a different approach. But if we actually stop and recognize the fact that we don't know, just like you were saying, we might have 10 more minutes, 10 days, 10 years, 100 years, who knows, but because of that, we should actually take advantage of it more and enjoy it. So I love the fact that you guys are doing that. That's great. So
Yeah, anybody we can influence. I mean, really, because somebody influenced me, and so I'm just passing it on. And the whole time is money thing, and or time is more valuable than money. And I mean, that's another reason I love working the way I work now versus being in the corporate world, is that you just are able to control your time more and find ways to create more time for yourself. So I mean, the program that I've developed is focusing on that as well. As like, here's how you streamline it. Here's how you get more efficient and what you do so you can have more time for yourself type
that's
thing.
awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that Americans are I would hope, and I think they are. I think they're starting to make, especially I think it's a generational thing, starting to make that shift of time is more important and more valuable than money and the big house and all that all that kind of stuff, the fancy cars. And I think of
All that
course
stuff does is strap you down, man.
yeah
I mean, we got a 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom house in Orlando, and I mean, yes, those nice houses. We were in a really nice house at a party last night, and that nice house is beautiful, but they spent so much money on it and a lot of time, and they are stuck with it now, and
yeah
or they have to sell it, and that's a whole burden. And who knows how much they'll get out of the sale, and so I mean, all that stuff just ties you down,
yeah
and
absolutely. Absolutely. That's awesome. So let me ask you, we've already mentioned a few times that Cuenca's your destination. You guys are planning to go for a year, and then basically after that year you don't know where you're just gonna play it by ear after that. So what's inspired you, or why, I guess let me ask, why Cuenca?
so the cost of living was huge, just because I mean, especially he's getting ready to transition out of his job, and it's going to take a while for him to get started. We wanted to find some place that was affordable, someplace kind of close to home. It's really probably takes 6 to 8 hours total to get to
Hmm.
Ecuador from Orlando. And just go through Miami. It's really easy, so it's not that far away. So yeah, it's cheap, and we knew that even though it was going to be different, it was comfortable enough for many other expats to call it home. And so we figured it'd be a good place to start,
Yeah.
and to start living abroad and to get a good experience and stuff like that. So, and I mean, we do have other cities on our list, like maybe one day we'll go live in Germany, but it's just so much more expensive there that we figured, we could go and struggle in one of those big cities, but
Right.
the more expensive cities, but it'd probably be smarter to work, as below our means as much as possible. I mean, and be able to save some money at the same time. So we'll
Yeah.
actually be able to rent out our house here and then save some money, because the cost of living in Cuenca is so low, which will be great for us being on mainly one income.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So, I'm based in Atlanta, and so with you said you have to go through Miami. Is that basically you're jumping from Orlando to Miami, Miami to Quito, and then you're taking a bus down to Cuenca? Do you know those details yet?
We're looking actually at Guayaquil. I'm not even
Oh,
pronouncing it
okay.
right, sure, but
Guayaquil. Yeah.
Guayaquil,
Yeah.
yeah, and then probably taking a private van, from the airport
To Cuenca.
to our door in Cuenca. We've actually already found a place to stay. So, and it's actually
Awesome.
nicer than here. Like, it's granite countertops. We got Formica countertops. 2 bedrooms, and $350 a month, including everything. And so we're really excited about it. But yeah, we're gonna go Orlando to Miami to Guayaquil, and then probably stay overnight because they usually get there at night, and then the next morning take a van to our doorstep in Cuenca.
Gotcha.
So.
So, you said 350? Is that a one bedroom?
It is a 2 bedroom. There's one bed, and then there's a loft that's empty. And so we're probably going to turn that into an office. So I guess it would probably be partially furnished, but all the major stuff is there.
Hmm.
We found it on Airbnb, actually, and we just typed in, places, and then we put in for a year. and this place popped up, and it was a lot cheaper, and it looked nicer than any of the other places. And so I emailed him and got that set up, and so
That's awesome. That's interesting to me too. That Cuenca, I mean, Cuenca right now has the greatest influx of expats probably than any other city possibly in the world right now. I mean, I think there's 10,000 expats, moving there. I think that's probably mostly Americans and then Canadians and
mhm.
I don't know what else, but I'm just shocked at how affordable the housing still is in Cuenca. And I had some friends that actually had gone there for about 3 or 4 months just so that they could just study their Spanish, get a little bit better at that. And I think that same thing, they were paying somewhere around $350 a month. They said it was a really nice place, and this was a couple of years ago. But if I go and I find like a two-bedroom apartment or condo somewhere like Bahia or Manta or Salinas, I mean, I'm looking at $800 a month roughly, give or take, right now. So to me it's fascinating that Cuenca is still, the cost of living is still so low there, especially with how many Americans and Canadians are moving in.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's really cool, and that's a great incentive, and that's something that my wife and I, we talk about all the time when we think about moving to Ecuador. We're looking at places that we know. When we have a lot of family in Quito, we have a lot of friends in Bahia. We've got some family in Salinas, but with us having two small children, we always have to kind of take into consideration other things too, like schools, medical facilities. Because my youngest son, is just 7.5 months old. But I think I would definitely consider Cuenca. My wife is a little bit more apprehensive just because we don't know anybody there. So now I can tell her I know somebody there.
Cool. Yeah,
After
yeah.
June, right?
Yeah, yeah. We're hoping to get there at the end of June or July. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So, did you guys, when looking at or when deciding on Cuenca, did you guys consider anywhere else other than like in Ecuador or in South America?
Not initially, just because we'd heard about. We were actually on the way. It was 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, probably now. On the way home from a trip to Jamaica, and we saw HGTV on. So we saw the House Hunters International
Yeah.
episode with Brian and Dina Haynes, who they run the. I think it's Gringos Abroad website.
Are they the ones that have the daughter? They've got
Yeah,
that, and
yeah.
they're, I think, from Canada, and she
They're
already
well.
spoke a ton of Spanish when they got down there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I saw them, and I know that the whole show was scripted and stuff, but we heard about it first then, and just totally put it out of our minds, and we just thought, wow, that'd be really cool. And it's just one of those things that because I wasn't at the time, but he was plugged in still, totally to corporate. That's just the path that you were taught, and he was going to go, and um, so we just totally just put out our minds. It was just one of those pipe dream things, like, oh, that's just not for us. It's just out of our reach and whatever. Like we could never do that. And so we just didn't really think about it. And then, it was probably sometime in September, so it's about 2 months ago here, that we kind of talked about it with some family, and on the way home, we just thought, well, we had talked about Cuenca because I remembered it from 2 years prior, and I was like, we can do this, and I had to sell it to my husband first, just because he's like, I need to know more, blah blah blah. And so we looked up YouTube videos. I read him stuff, and there's just so much out there in Cuenca. It's just a really positively reviewed place, and even the negative reviews are very fair. So we just looked at both sides, and we just thought, well, why the heck not? And so we really didn't think about any other cities initially, but as our dream has grown, because we realized, this couldn't just be the beginning.
Sure.
Every day is an adventure, and we'll get to Cuenca, and we'll really like the experience. We'll change a lot. We'll be way better at Spanish than we are now, and so I started looking at other cities that could be possibilities in South America, and I was thinking about Medellin, Colombia,
Yeah.
which was previously known as like the most dangerous city on earth because of
Right.
the drug cartels and stuff. But in the last 10 to 15 years, it's completely turned around. It's done a 180. And so I was researching a lot about that. There's a lot of entrepreneurs in Medellin
Yep.
that have made it their home base. And so I know if they can do it, we can do it. And so I've kind of added that as the top of our list for the next place we go. But I've liked the idea of South America quite a bit, just
Yeah.
because the cost of living is lower, and Spanish is just a really valuable skill that I'm really looking forward to improving on. I've been learning Spanish for about 2 months now. So I've made some good progress. Having learned a second language already has helped me a lot. But I'm just kind of just thinking about possibilities. But yeah, initially we really just had settled on Cuenca. So
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. So let me ask you then, because obviously you've got your business on how you're producing your virtual income, and then also you've recently launched your newest project. I guess it would be the most appropriate way to say, which is proofreadanywhere.com. And
hmm
so, can you tell me a little bit about that and what proofreadanywhere.com is?
yeah, so I am asked constantly. Every time somebody asks me what I do, I have to start from the top, and I say, do you know what a court reporter is? And they're like, yes, and they automatically assume that I'm a court reporter when I ask them that question. But I say, so I'm not a court reporter, but I read their transcripts. And then I kind of talk about how I do it. And more often than not, I get, well, I should do that. Like, how did you get into that? And I just say the same things over and over and over again. And I've taught several people for free how to do it, and they've had success. And after a while of doing that, I was like, well, geez, I should really, streamline this process as I've done with my own business and in doing the transcripts and actually reading them. And so it's really been all floating in my head for years, and I finally got prodded enough by my husband, incidentally, to just get it all out on paper. And so I wrote an ebook, I wrote an e-guide, and then 2 weeks ago, yesterday actually, I launched the website and I finished the product, and I have been working on that ever since. And basically, I feel bad that there's so many proofreaders out there that are on Fiverr, on Craigslist, earning little to
Right.
no money. They're begging for work, and so because they don't know that they can do what I do
What
and they
you
can
do?
make
Yeah.
the money that I make. And so it's just such a valuable skill. It's a niche for sure, and I know it's not going to be super popular, but I also don't care because I know that the right people will come along and they'll know. But I'm looking to help people learn about it, and whether or not they train with me is one other thing. But just giving them the option. People just don't know that it exists. I didn't know I could do what I do, and most people have no idea that it exists. So just to kind of spread the word, and hopefully, somebody will hear about it that needs to hear about it and have success as I have. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, let me ask you then, for anybody that has the goal or the intentions of eventually moving abroad, what would you say, like what would you recommend as the number one step that they could take to get started into a virtual business type situation, like what you have in place?
Well, I would just say, do your research. Don't wait. Just go start doing research. Get connected with people that are doing things similar. Whether it's proofreading transcripts, whether it's blogging, whatever it is. Find people that are doing it. Find out how they're doing it. If there's some educational materials or programs or whatever that you can invest in, or time to read things, whatever. Just do those things because I think it's worth it. I think it's possible if you they say there's a will, where there's a will, there's a way. And so if you want to do something, you'll find a way. And if you don't want to do something, then you'll find an excuse. So, I mean, people that are really passionate and realize they have faith in themselves. I would also say that, have faith in yourself. Know that if you put the work in, you put the time, you do the research, and you take the time to develop the skills that you need to do something, you can do it. And I would just say, just connect to the right people and, do what they do.
Uh,
So
that's that's
there's
awesome.
people out there that their business. I mean, technically, that's my business is to help people succeed, and so you got to seek out those people, to learn from them. They're
That's
willing to teach you.
Yeah, that's awesome advice because I think it's easy, and I know I'm very guilty of this. I tend to just try to tread it on my own because I think my own insecurities a lot of times makes me feel like it's impossible. I'm just this little guy. Why would anybody want to help me out? And what I've actually over the years I've started to learn and discover is that actually people do want to help you. And if you don't take that time to ask and seek advice or experience from somebody that's been in those shoes, then you've already failed. You've already eliminated that is an option. And so, I think people are scared of rejection, but at the same time, it's not a reflection on who you are or anything. And so the more comfortable you can get with being uncomfortable, and facing things like rejection, then yeah, the more successful you're going to be, and you're going to open up a lot of doors. And you know what's interesting too when you think about it is that 9 out of 10 people are going to have those same fears that you do about approaching that person that you want to talk to. So why
Hmm.
not be that one that does actually approach them and you know, open some doors? So I think that's really good advice. Um, well, here's what I'm hoping. Well, first of all, I think that you know, I just want to thank you for your time today, because I think it's awesome to get, you know, this perspective on being able to produce an income, working anywhere, and then basically just choosing where you want to go and just going for it, taking that, you know, that chance. And what I'm hoping, if you're up for it, that maybe we can have you and your husband back on later, either when you guys get closer to actually making that transition over there, or shortly after you get over there, just to check in and see how things are going, and what new things you've learned since then about actually moving over there to Cuenca.
Yeah, yeah, we definitely would love to do that. Just because there's a whole nother set of challenges with that, you know, especially because we're both learning Spanish and we're on a different level, and so there's different fears and different, you know, expectations that we're just not sure. I mean, we both have a different set of expectations, and just the work that it takes to be on the same page with each other and stuff. It's definitely a growing experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that'd be great. Well, if you don't mind, let go ahead and take a moment. Let everybody know where they can find you, your website, you know, so that if they want to get more information on how to do something, you know, similar to what you're doing. Just go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, it's just www.proofreadanywhere.com, and you can contact me or just take a look at the content that's there. I got a newsletter you can sign up for, just to stay connected if you're not ready to make a commitment to any kind of training, or if you just want more information. It's there for the taking. So
Awesome. Well, thanks again for your time, and I can't wait to hear more about your transition over there.
yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Looking forward to it.
All right, thanks.